Hmm. Huh? Give me a second, everybody. I just want to make sure that everything's working. We're actually going to try to live stream on Twitter. So for the people that are watching on YouTube, YouTube will still stay the same. We're just going to try live streaming a little bit on YouTube just to, or just, sorry, on Twitter just to see how things are going. And I'm not really hearing anything on the Twitter end of things. So I need to figure that out in a second. And then once I do, we can look into other things. Talking about NBA news, of course, talking about the ESPN news. I think that one's going to be the biggest one. So we'll definitely talk about that in just a second. But give me a moment to figure out this Twitter situation. Test mic, testing microphone. Oh, microphone. Hello. I cannot hear myself. Please. Okay. All right. Mic check 212 right here, right now. Trying something different here. Alrighty, perfect. We are officially live on all platforms. I do apologize that that didn't work out too well the way I thought it would, but really quickly, I'm just going to make sure that this is shared with the people that I follow and get them going on the Twitter sphere here. And we'll be live streaming relatively shortly. Uh, Give me 1 second. Let me just make sure that everybody has it. Okay, let's see here. And then let's see here. I need to send this to. All right. So, how is everybody doing? This is, of course, your boy Bernie here on the charge, giving the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. I do appreciate you guys tuning in, whether you're watching from YouTube, Twitter, Kick, wherever you're watching this channel. I do appreciate you guys coming on here talking about the things that we're going to talk about here today. As we proceed to give you what you need, there's a lot of stuff we're going to talk about today, including a little bit of, I would say, business news in terms of ESPN and their kind of handling of stuff. There's been rumors of them basically giving minority ownership of their company to these networks, or I would say to these sports leagues. So be on the lookout for that as we talk about it here on the charge. And also, like I said, we're going to talk about the Cavaliers and what I feel is, or what really Bickerstaff is feeling is the hottest of hot seats right now, just because we know, the Cavaliers are a good team. And again, we're going to talk about that and so much more here on The Charge, giving the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. If you guys haven't already, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe, and also hit the follow button. I'm going to have to change some of the stuff here. I might change the Twitter logo really quick and just make sure that it is the right. I think it's at __ the charge. Let me make sure that it's there at __ the charge, or whatever they're calling it. X, I think is what they're calling it. I can't even keep up with all the changes that Elon is doing. It's kind of ridiculous at this point. But nevertheless, please remember to hit the like, share, and subscribe, and also hit that follow button on Twitter. We're going to be trying a lot of different platforms to see which one kind of sticks and which one doesn't. So make sure you guys are on the Twitter sphere looking at that. If you guys want to watch the live stream, it's going to be on there. What I'm going to start to do now is live stream it there. So that way, when Pete and I go and talk about stuff, there's another platform as well as Kick, as well as YouTube, where we can talk a lot about this stuff and so much more. So, while we are waiting here for just another 15 seconds, hopefully you guys are enjoying your afternoon or night or wherever you're at in the world. I know that it's been a long day, it's been a long week, and we're only going to get busier from here because it is Monday, but I hope you guys can wind down and enjoy a little bit of the charge before you get on with your busy day. So let us go over to the live scene to talk about it right now. Alrighty, and our first story of the day is, of course, coming from the Cavaliers. This is, of course, coming from Brian Windhorst and the rest of the ESPN crew. Jamie Bickerstaff enters the 23-24 season reportedly under pressure to guide the Cavaliers to an improved offensive rating or offense to match their defense coming into the season. The Cavaliers feature a pair of bigs in Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, who both need to play near the basket currently, which has hurt their spacing. I think Bickerstaff is under pressure after the way the team played in the playoffs, said Brian Windhorst on his podcast. The way that they were outmaneuvered. Tibbs just did a great job with the lineups. He just did. Some of the Cavaliers went down their leg. Jarrett Allen basically admitted it. They didn't show up in that series for the most part, interjected Tom Batomps. I don't really watch the Windhorst show, so anybody that does, let me know what you guys think about that show. I think Staff is under pressure. He delivered a terrific defensive game plan for several years now. He has turned them into an elite defensive team. That's why they've won 50 games. He's under some pressure to deliver an offensive system that takes advantage of Evan Mobley and finds a way to alleviate some of the concerns you brought up. Find ways to play their best defensive lineup on offense. The potential upside for Mobley on offense is when he has the ball in his hands, but it's difficult considering he plays with a pair of ball-dominant guards in Mitchell and Garland. To me, this seems like what I personally feel is Windhorst and the rest of the media kind of wanting to break this team up when I just feel like this team just started to get their legs under them. I know I talked about them last year, kind of going and meeting the expectations of where we thought they were going to be last year. And I think they're delayed a little bit in their process of growing as a team. I think a lot of these people, and really I just think it's the generation we live in now, and it's not necessarily due with Gen X or millennials or whatever it is. It's just our generation of sports. There's less tolerance for, I would say, mediocrity in terms of starting at the bottom, as Drake would say, and now we're here, right? There's no sort of let's grow together, let's build from this so that when we finally get to the mountaintop, hey, we're finally there. I just feel like a lot of the times these leagues, these sports owners, these podcasters, including myself, I'm going to put myself in that category as well. We want results instantly, right? We want instant gratification. But I just think a lot of the time, especially in sports, instant gratification doesn't really get you far. The only time it has gotten you anywhere, I would say, really, is the 2008 Celtics. I don't want to bring them up just because I know people get annoyed talking about that championship. But that's the only time where instant gratification came about. Even with the LeBron James Miami Heat days, there was a sort of patience, right? There was a way that they lost in that 2011 NBA Finals against the Mavericks. They had to mature a little bit. They had to learn from those mistakes to get to where they're at now. It's kind of the same thing that happened to the Warriors when they brought in KD. They lost, and then they finally got better. But I think personally, the Cavaliers are on the right timeline. And again, these guys are just building with each other, right? I think a lot of people want to force the issue when it comes to these young teams. And, I would love to get Pete's perspective on this at some point. Maybe we'll talk about it later this week. But I just feel like there is this sense of I want things now and I want it done this way. And I just think that there needs to be a little bit of a let's grind and let's halt and not really force the issue. I know, like I said, we live in a generation in an era where waiting and seeing what things are going to happen is just not realistic. And as much as I would love that to be the case, we see a lot of coaches fail before they finally succeed. I just think that I think there's a time and place for that, right? I think of, to me, a big example of that would be, I would think of a guy like Doc Rivers, a guy that was on the Celtics as a head coach, did a lot of things, then all of a sudden, got the opportunity to coach the Celtics in that 2008 season and finally got his chance to win the championship. I really think for European soccer, I think, a lot of teams are just really instantly waiting, probably not even a season before they fire their next coach. I just think that that's kind of where I feel like we should start to go towards, because I think Bickerstaff's a great coach. Clearly his defensive schemes work. Clearly, I think a lot of these guys need to mesh well together. I think Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell need to figure out, kind of how the ball handling situation is going to be, who's going to be the guy that has the ball in his hands more often than not. But I don't necessarily think that this is going to be a big issue, in my opinion. And I don't think that we should be really discussing any sort of breakup or any sort of, hey, this guy's on the hot seat, he'll get fired. Because I think that this team needs this year to finally, I would say, get to where I feel like they'll be really in a good place. I just think that there's going to be a lot of situations where that's not going to be the case. And so I'm a little worried and also a little frustrated with the media and the way that they just kind of want to jump the gun when it comes to the Cavaliers team. Again, defensively, this team is really good. And I know that a lot of these teams and a lot of these players are going to be not patient. I know that a lot of people want to see bigger and better things from JB Bickerstaff offensively, but I think you just have to be patient with it. I think you just have to let it rock, let it roll, and then eventually it'll get to the point where you're appreciating, and really what you're noticing is that it's going to be a smoother ride if that's the case. But, I think a lot of people want to jump the gun. They want to jump process. They want to jump steps, when really it's a step process where you should really slow down to then go speed up. I hate the fact that we now live in a generation and really a time where people and ideas and things like that can't take the time to develop, to nurture, to process, because everything is so results driven in this generation, in this era, that it's going to be a situation like, yeah, there needs to be deadlines, because that's how pressure builds diamonds, right? It's the old saying. But pressure doesn't build diamonds in 1 week, 2 weeks, a year, right? It takes a little bit of time. Like, give them like a 2-year, 3-year window, and then let's see, right? So I think that they need to chill on that a little bit. I think, to me, JB Bickerstaff, he'll do the right thing. I think the jobs will be done right, but I think there just needs to be a lot more patience as it comes to it. So I hope that you guys let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about it. I think that this is going to be one of those weird situations where, I could see JB Bickerstaff getting fired next year, just because I think that there is an agenda to trade away some of this young talent that are on these teams to the other big markets. And so, I'd love to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Also, let me know what you guys think the Cavaliers. Excuse me. Jeez Louise, I'm sorry I'm yawning all the time. Let me know in the comment section down below, where do you guys think the Cavaliers will finish next year? I know that there's been talks about them, again, being a top 4 team, top 5. Where do you guys see the Cavaliers? I would love to know where you find them, or where you think they're going to be, in the comment section down below. Alrighty, let us move on to the next story, and I don't think it's going to show very well on the stream, so let me see if I can find kind of like a different, let me see if I can find a different, maybe, screen to show. Maybe this one will be better, because I really do want to talk about this because I think it's going to be an important conversation to talk about. For my people watching on Twitter, let me know how this looks. Again, I know that this is not necessarily the best way to do it. I would love to just kind of show my screen and kind of simulcast it onto Twitter, but it doesn't really work that well. But we're gonna try to work on it. We're gonna try to really liven it up here on Twitter. So we'll talk about it in just a second. But let me record this as well. We are now going to be entering in, I would say, probably the biggest conversation piece on today's topic, and that's, of course, ESPN kind of holding these talks, I would say. Bob Iger also had an interview with CNBC, I think, talking about ESPN's future. Where does it hold? And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I think it is a fascinating topic to really discuss and really kind of have a conversation about, because it really lends itself to what I think is going to be a very interesting time in sports, I would say, because of the fact that I think the social media, the streaming rights, and everything like that has really, in my opinion, turned this whole thing and this whole world upside down with the way that I would say never before has been seen in any capacity. I think a lot, and let me read this before we get going. Actually, let me find uh maybe, I'm not sure if the article's in here. Maybe we can maybe it's right here. Let's see if it'll let me make sure it's gonna be on the screen for you guys as well. No, that's the Disney. Oops, sorry. I did not mean to show you the stock of Disney. That is not what I was going for. I was hoping that it would show the article, but let me kind of read and talk about what's going to be. It's going to be a little bit of a doozy, so I'll kind of give the TDLR of this before I read the whole quote. Is essentially that Bob Iger, who is the CEO and head of Disney, is trying to figure out a way to make more money, obviously, because Disney is losing money. We know that Disney Plus has not been a success as they would like to have seen. But we know that ESPN is, and we know that because of the unsuccessfulness, I would say, of ouch, the unsuccessfulness, I would say, of Disney Plus in terms of the way that they would have liked. They are now going to be selling a lot of their stuff. I think Disney Channel is going to be something that they sell. Freeform TV, ABC, those are going to be some networks that are going to get let go by Disney. So if you guys are watchers of those programs and things like that, just be ready, I would say, for a change in the market, because I just think the market has shifted so much that I think that eventually that big change is going to happen. But they are deciding that, sports is going to be one of those markets where they're not going to touch, in terms of they're not going to sell the ESPN. They're not going to do any of that. But they do want to start, I would say, enclosing some of these sports leagues onto their own streaming service and platforms. ESPN Plus is one of those things. I haven't really used ESPN Plus the way that I think a lot of people should be, in terms of, there's a lot of games on, there's a lot of like colleges, a lot of high school, a lot of NBA, a lot of not even NBA, but just more so overseas basketball, things like that. And I think ESPN wants to start utilizing ESPN Plus a little bit more, because I'm going to talk about it kind of in a bigger segment. But that's kind of the TDLR. ESPN is basically looking into, hey, these leagues could own a minority ownership in ESPN, to kind of have a place where they can put their games on when they're battling with NBC, Fox Sports, and all these other networks that want to show these games. Basically, it's kind of like a safekeeping place where they can say, hey, we own part of ESPN, so we're going to put, and they can agree to whatever terms they want. They can say, yeah, we're going to put our stuff on ESPN. Get with our program, or else you're not going to get on this roster, on this excuse me, get with us. But let me go on to read what it goes on to say. So the article says in this, Now I'll kind of show it on Twitter, so I do apologize that the thing is small. The article goes on to say this: ESPN may not be at a crossroads just yet, but if it's not, it's there already. It'll quickly be approaching one. The channel saw its loss from cord cutting outweighed the amount of money it earned from carriage fees increase for the first time during the second quarter of 2023, and its parent company having discussions with cable and satellite providers about launching an all-encompassing streaming version of ESPN that doesn't require a pay TV subscription and presumably incorporate all content currently on ESPN. Um, Such an offering is still a way off, but the new report surfaced last week that Disney was having discussions with the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball about bringing the sports league on as a minority owners in the family of networks. If ESPN did sell part of ESPN to majority sports leagues, or to major sports leagues, it would be a game-changing move in several ways. First, it would give the channel and the leagues enormous leverage over other broadcasters when it came time to renegotiate broadcasting right deals. The NFL could demand whatever price it wants from CBS, Fox, and NBC for its games. If a network doesn't pay, the league can simply stash its games on ESPN outlets instead. Selling part of ESPN to major sports leagues would also allow these leagues to increase their presence on streaming once ESPN does begin offering a standalone streaming only version of its channel. The leagues would still have the option of shopping their games around to other streaming services, but if they don't see the kind of offers they want, they can all have an in house option ready to go. Audiences would likely follow ESPN to streaming. Even the older viewers who have traditionally been resistant to watching sports on streaming in general. A survey from September found that 78% of cable subscribers rated ESPN as a must have channel, once again confirming the stickness of its brand and the likelihood that customers would engage with the streaming only version of the channel at a high level. The transition of ESPN streaming The transition of ESPN to a streaming format may not take long, as some believe. Bob Iger of Disney CEO said that in an interview with CNBC in July that linear TV may not be the core to Disney going forward, and that his company was exploring strategic partners to buy into ESPN, or perhaps the purchase other linear TV assets from Disney, such as ABC, Disney Channel, and Freeform. Right, just like I talked about, they're looking to probably get rid of those. I would say three things, which kind of sucks in terms of Freeform, Disney Channel, ABC, like those, I would say were a big part of my childhood. It's kind of crazy to think that those are just now going to be by the wayside. Um, One of the big issues was, of course, Major League Baseball struggles with its regional sports network, lately making it an especially intriguing candidate to buy a portion of ESPN. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred has been blunt about his desire to pull all of his teams off of regional sports networks where their audience are much smaller and make all 30 clubs available in an in-market streaming platform that eliminates blackouts and other such restrictions. One of the biggest reasons that the platform isn't feasible just yet is that the wealthier teams like the New York Yankees and Red Sox have their own in-market streaming services available. Uh, Therefore, those clubs would get to keep all the revenue for themselves, and that to me is one of the biggest issues, and we'll talk about that in a second. Um, there's still a lot of host of questions to be answered. Very few details available about Disney's wheeling and dealing behind the scenes regarding ESPN, but partnering with major sports leagues would give the channel a great deal of flexibility heading into the future, especially when it launches its own streaming version of itself. And really quick, I just kind of want to read what Bob Iger said. He kind of said this to a lot of owners and executives. But know that sports network content is still very with the ability to reach millions of people. I think the biggest thing with sports, and kind of Bob Iger kind of says it, is that it is the only thing right now on TV that really unites a lot of people together. If you really think about the Super Bowl. Everybody and their mom watches the Super Bowl, right? Think about, national coverage games, right? The All-Star games, the pennant race for MLB baseball, the NBA finals, like all that stuff live brings a lot of people together all at once. Whereas now with the streaming services and the way things are going, especially, Disney Plus being one of them, Mandalorian, right? You can watch that whenever you want. You don't have to every Friday. Like, yes, it releases every Friday, but you don't have to watch it that Friday and be like, oh, dang, I missed it. When you can just go and find a different recording of it, right? Or you can go on live stream and say, hey, I just want to watch it instead of, missing out on the opportunity, right? Like, let's say Friday you're busy or you want to go out or whatever you want to do on Friday. And, that's when the TV show goes on. You can watch it the next day. Whereas in the past, like, yeah, you can record it, but for the most part, if you missed it, you missed it. And so that's kind of the thing that Bob Iger's talking about it. He also goes on to say we're going to be open-minded about looking for strategic partners. We're going to be open-minded about looking for strategic partners that can help us either help us with distribution or content. I'm not going to get too detailed about it, but we're bullish about sports in general as a media property. And again, I don't want this to turn into I would say finance in any sort of way. Like, we know ESPN and we know that Disney Plus have lost a lot of money. And they're looking to get some of that money back. There's a reason why there was a ton of layoffs for ESPN. There's a reason why I even talked about it here. They're looking to sell the network. They're looking to sell ABC, Freeform, Disney Channel, because eventually they're going to probably, like I talked about, they're going to move everything to digital, try to make it more exclusive, which in a way can hurt or help the consumer, right? If you're a Disney kind of supporter or loyalist, you're probably gonna buy their streaming content anyway. I think the trouble or the issue that you could get into at times is that now there's so many different streaming services that you now have to pay $10 here, $10 there, $10, to basically everything. And really, what I wanted to kind of do a discussion on, and the reason why I kind of wanted to make sure it was on Twitter, is because I think that this is a very interesting conversation to have when you think about it from a perspective of it like this. Why has ESPN been a dinosaur the last 5 to 7 years when it comes to this type of content? You think about you even think about the latest deal that they made with Pat McAfee. If you guys don't know, very popular streamer, had a very successful show, and is the reason why he's now getting, I believe, over $100 million from ESPN. And it's because these cable networks never understood, I would say, the power of the internet, social media, and really, to be honest, YouTube. The reason why that they never really understood that is because they thought that, for the most part, ESPN doesn't really make their money from the sports leagues, if you think about it, right? They rent out the time slots for these sports leagues, ESPN does, to make sure that these sports leagues have a place to show their games, right? It's the reason why, the TV deals continue to go up and up and up. And it's the reason why a lot of these people in media got fired, because you can't sustain that for very long. And in the past, I would say 10 to 15 years ago, before YouTube, before Twitter, before Instagram, before TikTok, before all these other media outlets really became popular, where did you go to watch your fantasy football news? Right? Where did you go to watch, NFL Sunday Countdown? Like, hey, let's get the big stories about the injuries, right? You're playing fantasy football. You need to know about the big injuries. Yeah, there's a little ticker that says, when you click on the fantasy football player, hey, this guy's going to be hurt. He might not play. It's a 50-50 shot. Now, there's a place on the internet where you can search that information up. In the past, like, you had to watch NFL Countdown. You had to watch NBA Countdown. You had to watch Around the Horn, PTI, First Take, Undisputed. Like, these were social media, or say these were TV shows that would build off of the sports, right? And it's the reason why ESPN got so many views back in the day, and why the money was good, and why they could hire so many of these on-air talents, because they want to provide content for you, right? Their content, basically, they are content creators in a sense, if you really think about it. All of the guys on ESPN, everybody at Fox Sports, everybody is a content creator trying to occupy your time so that they can sell ads from whatever sports, right? So think about it. They have like a Dick's Sporting Goods ad. You see it. Oh, yeah, I kind of want to go to Dick's Sporting Goods and buy a new basketball, or I want to buy golf equipment and things like that. That's how they get you. That's how ESPN really worked. But with the rise of social media and the way that these networks never saw it coming, I don't have to wait until the 4 p.m. slot to look up fantasy football news. If I want to go, I can just go here, go to youtube.com, search up, fantasy football 2023, and you have all these guys. You have a guy live streaming right now, Flock Fantasy. I have no idea who he is. But again, a guy going live right now doing a mock draft. Guy is talking about 6 must wide receivers in 2023. Draft, avoid, all this stuff. If you really think about it, that to me is what's killing ESPN and Fox Sports and other news networks, because I can go to YouTube and instantly find a video and say, let me find out what I can look up for fantasy football news. That is what Bob Iger, and I just think ESPN, like, as much as I think that they would give the minority, ownership to these leagues, I think it's too late in terms of where people are getting their news from, where people are getting their stuff and information from, right? I can look this up, right? Basketball news. We're doing a show right now talking about fantasy or about basketball. Right? We talk about all this stuff. Ball is life. Talking about the Mizzou men. What's going on with this guy? Bronny's first practice as a Trojan. Like, there is so much information. Like, I can instantly click on this video and not have to do whatchamacallit. I don't have to wait until the 8 o'clock segment on ESPN to finally watch, hey, Bronny had his first practice, right? It's kind of one of those things where that, I think, is what screwed, I would say, ESPN the most, is just the fact that they didn't really get into the streaming YouTube's environment, right? No longer are people invested in the sets and the fancy things on the outside. Like, yes, I would, for me personally, I would love to have that here on the Charge. I would love to have a professional studio where we have I'm trying to think of the right word, but have a studio where I have a desk with basketball, with a basketball rack in it, and me and Pete discussing on it and talking. Maybe not in suits. I don't. Maybe in suits. I don't know. I look pretty fly in a suit, but in a suit, or whatever it is, like, that I would love for that to happen. But that, to me, it's just not the reality, right? My best live stream here on YouTube was me and Pete talking about a summer league game in the Drew League about LeBron James, right? And it was just me and him watching the video on there, and that's what garnered millions of views. Whereas ESPN, they can't just break from a segment to do that, right? They can't focus on that stuff. And again, I think the thing that really killed ESPN, and really what's getting ESPN in this sort of predicament and where they have to go in terms of getting, I would say, turning from a sports renting league to a sports owning league, in terms of they need to own the sports leagues. They need to look into buying the sports leagues, TV deals and stuff like that, because they're just not going to make money. They're just not, right? They're not making any money off of buying the rights of the NBA or the NFL. Like, I understand that they're going to get money from the advertisement dollars and things like that, but if people are not watching the other sports networks and the other content that you have on your channel, that is a big issue. And that's really what's going to get ESPN into a lot of trouble, and it already has, right? Like we talked about, ESPN Plus numbers are not the highest they've ever been. ESPN has not been successful in a very long time. And I think they're finally getting into this sort of panic mode. And the reason why they brought on a guy like, the way they paid Stephen A. Smith, the way that they're looking into paying Shannon Sharp, the way they're looking to pay Michael Irvin, the way that they paid Pat McAfee, is because they are trying to buy content creators to make sure that you, the audience member, or me, an audience member as well, are now officially my competitors. Like, I'm looking to compete with ESPN for your screen time. That to me is what we're doing right now. Like, I'm hosting the show talking about the financial problems at ESPN because they're officially, and again, I am nowhere near the ballpark of these other TV shows. Like, we looked on YouTube, right? Whatever this guy's name is, Fancy Flock, right? He has over 1.1 watching right now, 17K watched in 8 hours ago video talking about the 6 must wide receivers. Like, that is an ESPN competitor. This guy is an ESPN competitor. And eventually I would love for that to be my case as well. Like, we need to be able to compete. But I think it just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of effort that Pete and I need to work on it as well. And especially me, as someone that is really involved in the charge and the way that things have been going here, we need to do a better job of it. But at the end of the day, like, ESPN is now a competitor of ours. Like, we are trying to compete in the same market, right? We're trying to get your attention, especially people that love basketball. We're trying to get you to watch basketball. I know that we talked about fantasy football and probably a sport that no one really likes here on the channel. But I did have to talk about it because I think it is a topic of conversation. But it's kind of one of those things that we just need to continue to monitor and look at the situation at hand, because I do think that this is going to be something very interesting, because I think it could lead down a couple of routes that may be positive, but it may be negative. Like, if you really stop and think about it, if ESPN, if they're minority owned by these other leagues, like it said in this article, ESPN could just say, or NBA could just say, hey, NBC, Fox, we want X amount of dollars for this product, like to rent on your programming. If you don't want to give it to us, we're just going to stay on ESPN and be happy and satisfied there. I think that it's kind of one of those things where it could be a slippery slope, though, right? Because I kind of had this, I would say, this inclination about these sports leagues is that eventually, these TV deals can't get any higher, right? I think they can, but eventually it's going to kind of plateau because it's just so much money year after year. And for these sport networks to even consider paying that much and doing other things to get to be involved in this situation, it takes a lot of freaking money. It takes a lot of money, right? And that to me is the biggest thing that I think these sports leagues have to be aware of, is that I don't think the money is going to infinitely go up and up and up every single year. Like, I know there's inflation and other things like that involved, but man, it's tough to sell that to somebody. It's tough for these sports leagues, because again, it is for these sports networks, or these conglomerates like ESPN, like ABC, like NBC, and all these other sports network leagues. You're not paying, like, they're not making any money besides the advertisement dollars of whatever company decides to want to put advertisements on along with their games, right? I just think that's going to be a tough conversation for a lot of these squads and a lot of these teams. Again, we see the New York Yankees and the Red Sox. They were smart and have their own sports network. I think the Knicks also have their own sports network, if I'm not mistaken. Madison Square Garden Sports Network. Excuse me. Like, I think it's going to be tough for these leagues, or these teams that have their own sports network, to say, hey, yeah, we're going to join you there. I think it's just a lot of money that they don't want to lose. And so, yeah, I didn't want this to turn into some long conversation, but it ended up turning into that. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the reality of where sports are at right now. I mean, it's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of things at stake that need to be adjusted and situated before we can really, I would say, understand the full legality and really the longevity of how long sports networks and sports leagues can last with the way that things are going. But let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys make of all this? Again, ESPN is in a world of hurt. They're looking to sell a minority stake to these sports leagues to own ESPN, to have ownership in them. Uh, Again, like I said, it could either be a really good thing, it could be a bad thing. But at the end of the day, it's kind of the reality of sports network and really the sports talk shows that we have right now. If you really think about it, no longer is it I have to wait till 5 or 6 p.m. to talk about NFL. I can go to YouTube and look up fantasy football. I can go to YouTube and look up basketball news and rumors and things like that, like here on the charts, which I hope you guys do. Like you don't have to wait anymore. It's on the content creator for sure, but the content creators for the most part are going to create content throughout the week, so you can just say, I want to watch this now. What are people saying a month ago about who the best receiver was? What are they saying now? I think it's just a little bit different. But anyway, guys, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys make of this story and so much more. Please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Again, all this stuff helps out the channel tremendously, so let me know in the comment section down below. All right, let's make sure that there's no other NBA news. If there's not, then we can officially head out of here. Again, we talked a little bit about this. And I think, again, it kind of goes down to talking about like how I think ESPN is in the red, and I just think that they're looking to kind of create more content for them. But with that being said, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Again, all that stuff helps out the channel tremendously. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Monday. Again, little 45-minute show. Wanted to talk about this. I think it's important because I think it does really let you know where the future of sports leagues are, because I think it's going to be a very interesting road ahead. But like I said, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. My name is Bernie. Thank you once again for joining us here on The Charge, giving the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. Please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button, and we'll catch everybody on the next episode of The Charge, and we'll see you guys